fun it has these last day and a half? How fun has the last day and a half been? Wow, I'm mixing up my words. I just had a salad. I should be a little more coherent than that. It's been an absolute blast, dude. I'm learning so much. We just had a session on how to get scrappy and make the most out of your marketing dollars. Yesterday, we had a BI session all about data analysis, and there's been so much talk. Stacey, I mean, we had a poll up on the beginning of day one. I know you watched that session. That said the top priorities going into 2025. And the number one thing was measuring ROI. Because everybody
how did I know?
was feeling like, how did you know? You just crafted the presentation last night. That's why
You're welcome.
Thank you. And so Stacey is spot on, and it plays into the aesthetics field. She's about to take it away. This is really near and dear to all of us at Cardinal because we're a performance marketing agency, and we all spend every day shifting clients, prospective clients, away from measuring things that don't move the needle. So Stacey, without further ado, take it away, you guys. Have fun for the next 45 minutes. Stacey, you'll be keeping an eye on the chats and the Q&As and stuff. So feel free to chime in. She'll answer whenever she feels like it, I suppose, or at the end. But you guys have fun. This is fun. Stacey's prepared a presentation, and unlike all of us that work at Cardinal, she's actually in y'all's shoes. So you can believe this one. Have fun.
Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. So thanks for the intro. Today, we'll be talking about vanity metrics, a topic that's very fitting for the aesthetics industry. Vanity drives our business typically, but shouldn't be our only focus as marketers. It's not just about what's on the surface that matters. We need to dig a little deeper to get to what metrics are driving sustainable growth for our practices. And that's what today's talk is really about. So without further ado, if I could advance my slide, here we go. As Alex said, I'm Stacey Harrison. I am the VP of Marketing for Inspire Aesthetics Group. And I'm not just an employee, I'm also a client of our practices, as you might see here. And Inspire is a private equity-backed platform of practices focusing primarily on plastic surgery, medical aesthetics, and hair restoration. We operate 11 locations in 5 states, typically across the Southeast. We do have a location out in Arizona. And our focus is on modernizing practices and supporting a practice manager model that helps reduce the administrative duties for providers, allowing them more time to collaborate with other stakeholders and peers, and time to focus on caring for patients without compromising outcomes or quality of care. So it's taken all those business administrative duties off of them. And today's agenda, we'll talk about vanity metrics, of course, reporting up to the board or your stakeholders. In our case, it's the PE board. How do we use data to report up? What data we are using and measuring? As a platform, what systems we're developing to track those things? How we're protecting PHI and privacy? And then what kind of our tech stack looks like? And then next steps with centralizing our data to really bring all of it together and show ROAS, which is ultimately what we're all trying to do, right? And so I may be dating myself here a little, but we all probably know the quote from John Wanamaker: half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. When times are good and schedules are full for the next few months, there is less worry about where our leads are coming from. But when the market has normalized and we're in an election year and conversion is more of a challenge, we really need to know where the best quality leads are coming from. So as marketers, it's easy to get distracted by the shiny object and advice from our friends or colleagues, or even what our kids are watching and what they're doing online to change the source of what we're doing. So we lose sight of what's really right in front of us, but we should be making decisions based on data. Our goal is to discover which marketing channels are driving growth for our business and which tactics or channels are just a distraction. Of course, testing and learning always helps to uncover new channels to help us evolve our strategy, but reacting on a whim and changing course because of what's hot or what's trending or looks good or feels good just may not always work for your practice. So I'm not going to bury the lead here. Today's discussion is really all about marketing attribution. I just guised it under the vanity of our business here. So let's talk about more marketing attribution and vanity metrics. Finding out where our most qualified patients come from is every healthcare marketer's mission. If we just had, as they say, shooting fish in a barrel, if we knew exactly where they were, that's where we would be fishing. So we survey our patient database every year. This year, we compared our database for one of our practices against what was actually put in the practice management system as where did they hear about us? Where did they first hear about us? And what we found was more than 50% of those answers did not match. The ones that did match were typically for patient referrals and didn't really have a name associated with it. So, to be able to tie that back to the exact place where we found those patients and what matches in our CRM and in our app platforms is really what we're trying to do. So the sort of lesson here is relying on a single source of data to make marketing decisions is imperfect. So if we were just to say, let's just take a look at our practice management system, find out where our business is coming from, I think we would find ourselves in some trouble. We'd probably be putting a lot more money into Instagram or things that maybe don't move the needle as much as they should. So speaking of social media, if you're in the aesthetics world, you've probably heard of surgeons like Dr. Nassif. Even if you're not in the surgery world, you probably heard of him from The Real Housewives, or Dr. Miami, the real TikTok doc. They have millions of followers, and social media has become the hot topic, at least at our group, since the pandemic. So when doctors are building up their online profiles through channels like TikTok and Instagram, they got really famous, and it was easy for them to fill up their schedules and command really high fees. And I am a big fan of social media marketing and management. I think it does offer a lot for all of our practices. I think we just have to be careful about how we're looking at our measurement there. So, um, when we're talking about vanity metrics, I think some of the ones that can really be found most often are typically in social media. We get a lot of feel good, I suppose, from impressions, but looks can be deceiving in social media. Impressions don't always equal patients. We may not be targeting the right people when we're serving our content. And likes don't always come from active users or even local users that could be a potential patient for our services. And as we all know, followers can be created with AI just as easily as a post copy can be. So just be leery of where you're finding, how you're measuring your social media metrics and what's really important. For us, we talk about engagement. So I'll show kind of a small case study here. We have a new surgeon to our platform who's really talented. He's kind of early career, and he works mostly in body contouring. And more than 90% of his leads come from Instagram and not Instagram boosts or Instagram ads. This is truly organic content. So kudos to his social media manager and creative director if you're out there today, Christian. She does a wonderful job. But their average age is about 37 years old, and they're typically models, entertainers from the South Beach, Miami area. So they are more than willing to share content before and afters of their results. So their posting strategy is pretty simple. They're posting 2 to 3 times a week, but they have daily before and after reels and stories that they post on. And that's typically where they find the most engagement. Their engagement rate is over 10%, which I think the best practice or standard is about 2% in social media. So it's outstanding for them. So with just over 64,000 followers, he's not a mega influencer, but this does drive his business. So it's really cool that he's been able to do that. When we compare that to another surgeon within our group who is extremely talented facial plastic surgeon and has been practicing for about 30 years now, his average audience age is 59 and older. So these are typically women that get facelifts, rhinoplasties, and they're often less likely to share their before and afters because it's just people don't like to talk about the plastic surgery that they've had, and this doctor has operated on celebrities before. However, that's just not something that people like to really talk about. As you know, J-Lo doesn't talk about what she's had done, but we know she's likely had a few things. So if we're thinking about the same strategy for this later career surgeon as we're doing for the early to mid-career surgeon, do we think that's going to work? What I didn't tell you is the early to mid-year career surgeon, the body contouring surgeon who's really skilled, when he's not operating or seeing patients, he is living online. So he is commenting, liking, and engaging on other accounts, and they're engaging right back. So it does take quite a bit of effort in order to gain that kind of traction over time. He's been able to do it, but it's just not for everyone. So when I say thinking about, what your strategy is, based on what everybody else is telling you, this is one where you just need to know all the facts before you really make a decision on how to move forward. So I think this is a case of sort of the number one rule in marketing, which is know your audience. What's the second rule? Well, for me, it's making sure that you have the data to make the right decisions. So, what are those value-driven metrics that do help us make the best decisions and be a good steward of our marketing resources? The conversion metrics that we look at are, how many forms are we getting? How many first-time callers, new patients are calling in and booking appointments? Obviously, online appointment bookings and bookings in general. Those are the key things that are truly important. And then customer lifetime value, what is that average purchase value? And what are the retention rates? Are we retaining those patients once they do come in? So that's truly getting to the heart of quality. Are we generating monthly recurring revenue from these patients? Are they continuing to come back or buy memberships or packages? And then ultimately return on investment, which of those marketing channels are driving the most return, which can be challenging to really analyze if you don't have the right setup, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So when we think about reporting up this data to our board or to our key stakeholders, this is really about, they care about measurable returns. They want to know what the marketing budget is being utilized, and they want to make sure it's used to drive quality leads and retain those high value clients. So just a couple of stats about the move toward private equity. This isn't a pitch for everybody, but just so you know, a 2021 survey conducted by the AMA, or American Medical Association, found that more than 50% of physicians are now employees. So that's a big shift from historical medical practices. And physician-owned practices have dropped by 10% compared to 2012. So there's definitely a move towards PE firms purchasing practices, as we know. So if you're considering a sale at some point or an exit strategy, prioritizing those metrics that potential buyers and investors really need is profitability, scalability, customer retention rates, and brand equity development. They want to know that this is a brand that has longevity after you leave and after the next surgeon might come in and help take over your practice. So we do not change the brand of our practice. So we'll talk about that in just a second as well. But again, just highlighting those metrics like return on ad spend, patient acquisition cost, and any kind of marketing generated revenue that ties directly to business growth. Those are the things that we'd be looking at. So we've got all kinds of data to analyze, right? It comes from all different sources, from our patient surveys and reviews to website analytics and ad performance. With so many data points, kind of where do you start? The first party data alone can give us amazing insights from our CRM and practice management systems. But as busy marketers, how do we really pull all of this together into one place and make better decisions with it? For us at our platform, it's about developing systems to measure our marketing. And, some of these are manual until we implement a more automated system. But we operate on a house of brands. So as I mentioned, we do not rebrand our practices. They maintain that for the longevity and, local community engagement that they've already built over the last typically about 25 years. So we've got multiple brands to manage, multiple practices that are typically on different systems. And we've really got to get scrappy to find ways to measure that data across so many different systems. So if money were no object and time had no value, we would immediately move our practices to a consistent platform. But we do that over time so as not to overwhelm the practice and not to overwhelm the staff. But having everybody on the same PMS or practice management system is really key. And then developing a CRM lead management system that works with that and integrates with that so that we can track where those leads are coming from and what's happening to them. And then also implementing an online appointment scheduling system so that we can make it a lot easier for our patients to make those appointments. So consistent lead tracking, call tracking, I'm sure all of you guys are using that in one way or another, so that's important. And then integrating your ad campaigns along with your UTM tracking with your CRM, if that's possible. So source tracking in your practice management system, if that's possible. I haven't found one yet that is, but we can talk later in the Q&A if you found one that does integrate that that information. And a CRM that could pull that information in together and then tie it all back. Consistent CRM utilization is really the key here, and getting your team to buy into it and make sure that they are tracking the right things and utilizing it consistently. I will say that's probably the most difficult part about all of this. But if you have a great relationship with your ops team, it's getting on the same page with them so that training is consistent and really supported throughout. So consistent KPIs, even if you have different systems, you can still measure lead volume and conversion metrics. That's fairly simple, even if you do it on a spreadsheet, just to start out with. But you can measure that lead to consult conversion, then consult to scheduling conversion. And of course, cost per lead, you can typically average that out as well to get you to patient acquisition costs. And then ultimately return on ad spend is really what we're trying to get to. I think that's the goal of all of ours, is, as the poll said, as Alex mentioned earlier. So, and of course we have to do all this while protecting PHI. That's why we partner with groups like Cardinal, because we have a BAA in place and they avoid using custom audience targeting and things that might get us in trouble. We do not need a class action lawsuit. We realize the bigger that you are, the bigger that you become, the more of a target you also become for HIPAA violations. And so we prefer to be just really cautious and protect our PHI. So we utilize HIPAA compliant analytics right now. We use Mixpanel, and we are using CallRail, but really love other applications like Line, Fresh Paint. And in a moment, I'll talk about a little about Arena Calibrate as well. So I know we have a few questions in the chat. I will get to that in just a couple minutes. I promise I left plenty of time for that. But when looking at how do we enable this proper measurement of across the board, it's really starting from the lead funnel, obviously, where those marketing channels that are driving leads and digital leads, from call tracking all the way to Google Ads tracking, Google Business, and Meta. And we can do that through our CRM. We're utilizing Aesthetic CRM for lead management and marketing automation. It's a really robust platform. There's some similar ones out there on the market. We also create our landing pages through there and can provide reporting on marketing attribution, which is really helpful for our board to be able to see as well. Our practice management system is Nextech, and that helps with financial, quoting, scheduling, and reporting, as well as inventory management, lots of other bells and whistles, advanced analytics, and then of course our EMR. And then for patient experience, to help make it easier for our patients to get in touch with us and schedule appointments, we utilize NextPatient. And that also sends out appointment reminders and review reminders as well. So it's a really robust platform too. TouchMD, highly recommend there for patient engagement. They have a patient portal that allows patients to sign their consents, look at videos before and after, or before, during, and after their appointments, assign homework if that's needed, and really kind of communicate back with the practice, even schedule telehealth visits there. So it's a really great set of tools. And then for analytics, talk about a little bit more in a second, but as I mentioned, we use Mixpanel that feeds through to Looker Studio to analyze our ad campaign performance on a regular basis. And we probably look at it a little too frequently, maybe a few times a day, as opposed to once a week or once a month, but we're constantly looking at our lead volume just to make sure that our practices have the resources they need. And then, there's other tools as well. And what we're ultimately trying to get to, and if this were a month later, we might actually have this built out, but this is just, we are working on a dashboard similar to what you see here that will collect all the data related to our marketing efforts in one single dashboard that will display lead volume, cost, campaign performance, and ROAS across all channels. So this looks beautiful. I can't wait for it to actually become a reality. But we are pretty close to getting there and are really excited to be able to have this type of a consistent tool that has pulled in data from all the way from our CRM and our ad platforms, including the GCLID and the Facebook ID, all the way to connecting it to our practice management system with so that we have appointment information, treatment, values, revenue, and tie that back to a true ROAS for, source to close reporting. So I think I saw a heart in there. Amen to that. This is going to be a game changer, I think, for practices of the future that kind of embrace this kind of reporting structure and this kind of visibility for not just your board, but also for your practice managers and your providers who want to know if things do maybe slow down or they're kind of wondering where are we at year over year. This is a tool you can really use to show them that the efforts that you're putting in as marketers are really paying off at the end of the day. And if they're not, then you have reasons to pivot, and you have the answers here right in the data. As a marketer working with several agencies, one of the first things that they typically say in an engagement is, if we can't see what's happening to the leads we're providing, how are we going to be able to report back to you on, how to make those changes and incremental improvements? So this is our answer to that, to be able to finally do that. So hopefully this is marketing attribution made easy. This is how we're centralizing our data. So in summary, to get away from being about vanity or not being so vain about your marketing metrics, measure what works or measure what matters. Work with your board and your ops team to determine what KPIs are right for your practice and effectively manage and measure. Don't rely on one source of data alone. Don't rely on just the information that you see in the practice management system. It can be flawed, not because people aren't doing their best, but because people just don't always remember what they're telling you as well. Develop systems for consistent measurement, such as call tracking and CRM usage, and don't stop even when the patient care coordinators say, oh, this is hard, I can't do it, there's too many systems. Find ways to make that work. Continue to work on their workflow so that the patient experience doesn't suffer, but you still get the data that you need to be able to provide them with the leads they need to do their job. And if and when your budget allows, partner with a data analytics group that can create a source to close dashboard like I showed in the previous slide. I think that will make all the difference. And it just goes without saying, protect PHI. We're healthcare marketers. We're here to do the right thing by our patients and really provide the best possible experience we can. So that is what all I had for you. Looking forward to hearing your questions. I'm just going to open up the chat and see what we have here. All right. Let's see. This consistency is so key with tracking and data to make those decisions for your business. Absolutely, Jacqueline. Totally agree. Aaron, yes, if Rome was built in a day, we would all just be so happy, right? It would be so much easier. Yes, a reliable, consistent source of truth is really what we're shooting for, Victoria. Probably only takes you 3 days to build Rome, Aaron. Funny. Let's see, to the influencer points, how do you see the doctors navigating trends while maintaining their unique identity, how they stand out against the other doctors, also looking to be patients' source of truth? Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, to that point, our doctors are, really looking at the data that we're providing just, from the aesthetics industry about what they want to see. And then also, kind of local market, we have a feel on that. So our doctors, and I think most in this arena, aren't the ones that are going to dance on TikTok and do funny, silly videos. They really want to provide educational content, and they're more serious people, most of them. So to do something that's not authentic for them is not something that we recommend. So we have a fabulous team of in-house communicators. So we have a brand and communications director who I think is on the call today. So Nicole, I'm shouting you out. She and our social media manager, Treasure, do a wonderful job of onboarding our doctors and finding out what their true brand identity is, what's important to them, and what are those key pillars. And then we build a strategy based on that. So the content reflects them and not what everybody else is doing, because that at the end of the day is noise and it's just vanity. So that's how we make sure that we are creating a strategy around them. And it's worked really well for a couple of our, especially younger providers that are really willing to embrace social media, engage on it. Um, let's see, how do you report metrics to the C-suite when practices are in that transition stage of maybe tracking things differently? Yeah, Laura, great question. Really challenging to do that in the beginning, but it's just working as closely as you can with the practice management system, with any kind of tracking tools you might have, whether that's the forms from your website, call tracking metrics, and just seeing which ones are qualified. Can be a manual process in the beginning, but we're working towards a more automated process as well. How interested are the providers in seeing these metrics, and do you share the same data with providers that you do with the C-suite? Yeah, actually we do. Each month we meet with our providers, or at least allow them the opportunity to meet with us, and we share the metrics on where their leads are coming from and what's really driving the most volume for them. And then we will also, kind of give some additional color for any strategy we might have built out for the future. And we love to hear their feedback. Sometimes they have some really amazing ideas. I shouldn't say sometimes, they always have really incredible ideas for us as well for how we might be able to improve. So it's really been really helpful. Great collaboration. Since you don't change your brands, how much autonomy are they given in the marketing? Does that ever affect your metrics? That was a guess. So we do have some autonomy with our marketing. In the local community, we offer our practices to, choose which kind of typical traditional media they want to do. And we really handle things from a digital marketing perspective so that they have some consistency in metrics there. So if they want to do, some sponsorships or local community events, they have budget to do that and can decide, which areas to really target there. I think, let's see, any other questions? Really appreciate the engagement here. All right. One more message, super helpful. Thanks, Kelly, appreciate it. And thanks, Aaron. Thanks all for allowing me to take up 28 minutes of your time. I do appreciate it. And I wish you guys a great rest of the conference.